All right, so we were discussing this earlier. Apparently, we've got some questions coming in.
Yeah, well, some people that have been listening to the show have dropped some questions. So I don't know what they are, Mr. Anthony. So ask the questions. It's message Mike, and Mike will try and answer these questions you have for you, or try and come up with a way of answering the questions.
All right, so Jason from Sandringham?
Sandringham, yeah.
He's new to the world of professional wrestling, and he had no idea that we've got wrestling here as well. So he wanted to know, how did wrestling start here?
Oh, okay. Oh, that's a good one. I can only really go back as far as the 60s. So if it was here earlier than the 60s, I need to do some research. But in the 60s, a gentleman called Jim Barnett, which was an American promoter, gave up his promotion in the around the Detroit, Michigan area, come to Australia and set up the WCW actually here in Australia. And he started bringing in US wrestlers and wrestlers from other parts of the world and started running a wrestling program here in Australia. And it was hugely popular from about, I think from around about 64, 65 and around all the way through to around about 77. A lot of the wrestlers like your Mario Milano's, I don't know if Jason, you've heard of that guy, but Mario Milano was a very famous wrestler here in Australia. He was originally, well, they built him from Italy, but I believe he was from Argentina originally. And a lot of the other great guys come out, Killer Kowalski, Killer Carl Cox, Ox Baker, Bulldog Brown, the whole heap of those guys from that era. Even a young Ric Flair wrestled out here. So we had a lot of guys out here that were superstars. Harley Race wrestled out here. So the scene used to be very strong. Somewhere around 77, 78, it was a Channel 9 program. And I don't know the full story, but Mark Lewin and Ron Miller, I think, was involved. And they bought out the promotion from Jim Barnett. And then they lost the TV rights. So then after that, there was no TV, and really wrestling you required TV, especially back in those times, no internet or anything like that. And it slowly become a regional, not quite an indie back at those points, because it was very closed shop with Mario Milano, guys like that. They'd frown upon you, like George Giulio that runs the Hitman School. He was one of the first guys to start teaching people how to wrestle without, well, you still had to know someone and use someone that knew someone to get involved.
Yeah.
Right? You couldn't just walk in off the street back at those days, but he was one of the first guys that started teaching people outside the inner sanctum. And he was alienated there for a while from Mario and the other guys out here that were ex-WCW guys from Jim Barnett. And then he got accepted amongst the group of the guys and then pretty much the local scene pretty much exploded from George, because George started training guys, and then he assisted in opening PCW. They brought him in as the head trainer at PCW, and pretty much anyone that's learned wrestling in Victoria, they've learned George's style from George directly or from an academy that George has helped open up, or people have opened up after he's taught. Wrestling Australia-wide, there was always, I think Ron Miller ran a school in Sydney, and South Australia was Cole Devaney. He was the guy that taught people out in Adelaide. So a lot of guys that are wrestling in Adelaide now really owe their ability to wrestling to Cole Devaney, right? So there was a couple of guys that sprung off from the TV eras and then started teaching wrestling schools. And that's how we got our local industries around here, all the little indie shows. So if you're out there, go and check out an indie show, because you never know, you might see the next MJF.
That's very true. We hope that does answer your question, Jason. Now, I've had another question from Lacey in Melton. She's she's also started getting into watching wrestling, obviously with a particular focus on women's wrestling. And she wants to know, and she's starting to like what she's seeing, and she's like, and she says to me, I want to do this one day. What do I need to do in order to do that?
Okay. All right. So, firstly, you need to really be over 16, 17 to start. Don't get in too young because you're going to end up hurting your joints and that kind of thing. Start hurting your joints and that kind of thing. First of all, find a recognised trainer. Don't just go and train in some guy's yard or on a mattress. You know, I'm always partial to George Julio, right? If anyone wants to know how to get in touch with George Julio, please drop us a line and I will make sure that you get his number or vice versa. But there's plenty of other schools around. There's PCW Academy, there's MCW, there's Melton. I can't think of what their name is, but there's Melton out there. Relentless. They're the ones, and I think, I don't know if he still does that anymore, but I believe in South Melbourne, I think there is Carlo Cannons, but I don't know the name of the school. But if you look around, but find someone that's reputable, find someone that's going to teach you how to wrestle, not just a lot of what we call high spots. You know, you have to understand how to crawl before you can walk, before you can run. So make sure whoever's teaching you is teaching you the chain wrestle and that kind of thing. And then, you know, you got to try and get as much ring time as possible. So that will mean you're going to work for nothing for a long time. You're going to go travel Ks and literally do matches for nothing. Put the ring up, pull the ring down. Maybe if you're really lucky, they might, you know, give you a hot dog or something at the end of the night. But that's all about gaining experience. You know, once you've gained a certain amount of experience, and it depends on how serious you want to go. If you're happy being an indie person, you might just be happy to making a few bucks, 30, 40 bucks here in Australia, a match, and just doing as many matches as you can. If you really want to get good, you've got to look overseas. So once you hit a certain level here, then you've really got to go maybe to England, maybe to Japan, you know. If you get the opportunity to go to New Zealand, a lot of great workers in New Zealand, a lot of great people in New Zealand. Shout out to Tank. So, you know, there's a lot of great people around, but if you've got to travel to get better, because the more different people you work with, you know, the better you become. And then at the end of the day, there's only a level you're going to get to. If you're at the WWE or AEW level, you'll get there. If you're not going to make it, you're just not going to make it. It's a bit like acting. You know, it's hard to say, oh, you can put all this effort in and you're going to make it 100%. It ain't like that. You know, it's some people have it, some people don't. And Lacey, I hope you have it. And I hope I'm watching you in 10 years' time on TV.
Hopefully we're all watching you and cheering you on.
Yeah, any Australian, we always want to see Australians do well.
That's the two questions that were sent to me over last week. We will be back same time next week with all three of us reviewing the Money in the Bank pay-per-view that's due to be live this Sunday morning at 10 a.m.
We've missed the golden tones of Peter Ferry.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that voice, Peter, we miss you.
Yeah, we miss you, Peter. We'll be all back. NAW, which Lacey is another local professional wrestling company. They're due to come back July 30th, live from the Sunbury Memorial Hall.
Yes, this is true.
It's their first show
since COVID.
3 years now?
Oh, it'll be 2, I reckon. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, I think it'll be about 2.
Well, about 2 years due to COVID. We got returning faces, new faces, maybe some legends. It's going to be a massive, massive card. And we're all very excited, aren't we, Mike?
Yes, we are. We're glad to see the NAW back again. You know, one of the longest running institutions in Victorian pro wrestling at this point. And, you know, glad to see the name, the flag flying again, you know, just because we loved it very much.
We each got our starts at NAW, like
Actually, Lacey, I forgot another training school. They're on the other side of town from you, while I remember. So if I've said this too late, I do apologise. APW.
Oh yes, APW.
I forgot them completely.
Out of
So.
Frankston.
Frankston? Are they Frankston? Well, I think they're actually, Frankston was just near Sandringham, so Jason from Sandringham might want to go check them out.